vibrant traditions, be it our culture or our democracy, have an unequaled legacy. Throughout our history, these two facets have often aligned together and have resulted in a natural inclination for a democratic process. By that logic, our parliament, the source of our national government, the temple of our democracy, must be the single most important building in India. Sadly though, like our culture, the parliament building was also sidelined for over half a century. The construction of a new parliament building only began this year, spurred by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led government. Hello and welcome to New India Junction. I am Richa Dwivedi, and today let's pause and look at the much debated new parliament building, why it was needed and how it has set the highest standards for modern construction projects in the future. If we were to answer this in one line, we would say that since 1921, when construction of the existing parliament building began, it's been 100 years. But you may rest assured that we have been thorough in our analysis. India has changed dramatically in the last 7 years. We have had multi-sectoral and exponential growth. Do you really think that even with gradual progress before this, nothing changed in 93 years? Do you believe what was said to be sufficient in a colonized, oppressed country would be enough for what eventually became the world's largest democracy? The second reason is even simpler. The parliament building was never really Indian. Designed by Herbert Baker and Sir Edwin Lutyens, it was envisioned after the Colosseum. Now, that in itself is just as Indian as the East India Company, if you know what I mean. It was actually a council building that, despite its grandiose structure, was never designed for bicameral legislature for a full-fledged democracy. Now, the third and most important reason: the inadequate space and the inappropriate provisions. A large number of opposition leaders and intellectual journalists had opposed the need for a new parliament. But let me ask you this question. Around 1931, India's population was around 350 million, and the building was probably just about adequate then. However, today, how can the same building be adequate for all the representatives for a population that has grown more than 3 times?
Today, compared to around 5 lakh people that a member of parliament used to represent at the time of independence, each member gives voice to the aspirations and needs of 25 lakh people. Given the already cramped seating, particularly during joint sessions, several members have to be allotted ad hoc and temporary seats.
Forget the fact that it is undignified. What if it was your MP who was asked to sit separately? Why should any MP sit separately for that matter? Are those 25 lakh people that are represented by the MP less important?
And this is now, when the number of Lok Sabha seats are frozen since 1976.
What happens when number of MPs increase, as is expected with the delimitation exercise and lifting of the freeze in 2026?
Lok Sabha speakers have been quick to understand this. Mrs. Meera Kumar in 2012, Mrs. Sumitra Mahajan in 2015, and Mr. Om Birla, in their capacity as Lok Sabha speakers, had written to the government requesting for a new parliament building. Even ministers like Jairam Ramesh and Bijayant Panda had highlighted the same.
There were of course some who had opposed it even then.
Maybe to fuel the hangover, maybe to toe the line.
But let's now look how this new parliament building is. As Prime Minister Modi himself put it, one of the most important milestones of our democratic tradition.
Firstly, the new building will be India's first purpose-designed parliament. We desperately needed it, and now we'll have it. Secondly, with the Lok Sabha strength increased to 876 seats, the Rajya Sabha with an increased capacity of 400
and the additional seats in Lok Sabha that will take the capacity to over 1200 seats for joint sessions, the new parliament building will be adequate not just for today, but also for any increase that may happen in the foreseeable future.
Third, and one of the most important, the need to relieve distressed infra and inadequate workspaces. There were 2 new floors added in 1956 to accommodate MPs. This led to an altered architecture and poor light.
Which begs the question, Why the debate against something new and designed with a purpose, since the design isn't the same anyway?
Moreover, here's a glimpse at the state of audio-visual equipment in the current parliament. We're in the middle of India's digital revolution at a time when we prefer video calls and digital payments.
Why must our representatives have to use archaic technology that decreases their efficiency?
But it's not as if additions were not made. The hasty ad hoc changes have not degraded the original building's beauty and sanctity. They have made the building structurally insecure.
In the absence of proper plans and blueprints, and with the risk of earthquake having doubled over the years, the engineers can't risk making the building even weaker.
The new Parliament building will not only have state-of-the-art AV infrastructure, it is being built to last. Every imaginable safeguard is in place.
From adequate fire safety measures, corrosion-resistant steel, using concrete that is of a higher quality than industry standards, to sensors for monitoring structural safety and separate utility blocks to ensure unhindered supply.
And all this is just the tip of the mountain of work which is being put in to accomplish this mammoth task, that too at record speed.
But of course, you may be wondering what makes it Indian. A significant number of things. It is, to begin with, a parliament for, by, and of its people.
The top of the new building will be crowned by a massive Ashoka emblem, approximately 21 feet high and 10 feet wide. The building will also include museum-grade galleries and a central Constitution Hall and gallery to showcase the Indian Constitution and related artifacts.
The national tree, Banyan, will grow proudly in the courtyard.
The Lok Sabha will prominently feature India's national bird, the peacock, and the Rajya Sabha will incorporate the national flower, the lotus, in its design.
Moreover, the parliament will also feature hand-woven carpets from Uttar Pradesh, teak wood from Maharashtra, bamboo wood flooring sourced from Tripura, stoneworks from Rajasthan, and Ashok Chakra from Madhya Pradesh, and artworks from around the country. How's that? Finally, let's look at the economics bit of it. Many have been quick to criticize the spending. None have, however, asked where it is going.
Over 35,000 metric tons cement has been used so far, over 18,000 metric tons of reinforced steel, over 6,000 workers have been employed as skilled and unskilled labor on and off site, all 100% Indian. This has generated over 5.76 lakh person days. For the new parliament building alone, over 7 lakh for the active projects of Central Vista redevelopment.
Each person day is a day of employment and income for those who need it the most. Is that not the true embodiment of the Atmanirbhar spirit? And despite a global pandemic where all the on-site workforce were provided free rations,
the work has progressed and 30% of it has been completed.
We all saw how Prime Minister Modi himself visited the construction site even after a jam-packed foreign engagement tour.
He took stock and interacted with workers, and it has been his express wish that a digital archive of the project workers be created so that the entire nation can celebrate their contribution.
From ensuring a more greener, more sustainable construction to providing comfortable living spaces for the workforce, the new parliament building is a reflection of the new Indian view. Inclusive, respectful, and confident. No better way to describe it than what Prime Minister Modi said.
पुराने संसद भवन ने स्वतंत्रता के बाद के भारत को दिशा दी, तो नया भवन आत्मनिर्भर भारत के निर्माण का गवाह बनेगा। पुराने संसद भवन में देश की आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति के लिए काम हुआ, तो नए भवन में 21वीं सदी के भारत की आकांक्षाएं पूरी की जाएगी।